Okay, council, up next we have roll call. Ms. Holly?
Declared.
Thank you. Okay, up next on the agenda is the agenda approval.
Mayor, we do have one small change.
Sure.
We will be moving the introduction of Clifton Simmons to the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Okay, Council Griego.
And with that, I'll make the motion that we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, please start voting. Okay, Ms. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, up next on the agenda is citizen comments. This is the segment of the agenda where we have any citizens who would like to come up to the podiums over here. Make sure you push the button and one of the mics will light up. And we ask for you to make your comments, but we also ask that you keep your comments within 3 minutes. We do have a timer over there. If you're still talking, when the buzzer goes off, I will politely ask you to have a seat. Okay, up first, we have Mr. Ron Brink.
Guess I pushed the right button.
You did.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor
You're
and
welcome.
council members. I wanted to, as a citizen of the San Luis Valley, and I'm totally independent on this and have nothing physically to do with it or anything, but I know you all read about the changes that want to be made, the upgrade to Sky High Park in Monte Vista. And the other, last week sometime I heard a presentation about this, and I've kind of been keeping in touch with what's going on just for my own self-understanding. But I think that you as a body and this, the city of Alamosa needs to look at making a significant donation to that. Practically every single thing that goes on at that facility does, it benefits Alamosa, the city of Alamosa and the county of Alamosa. So I think that I just would really like to see you look at this, and I hope you will get a chance to have a presentation. I'm pretty sure you will, if you haven't already. So that's what I wanted to bring to your attention, and I just think that it's something that can really help the facility, and the facility that is falling apart. I mean, it is literally falling apart. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brink. Thank you. Up next, we have Yolanda Chavez.
And Mayor, as she makes her way up, you will notice Councilor Daniels making her way down. So she's actually putting on a little bit of a different hat and is part of this presentation as part of her place of employment.
Okay, sounds good. Can you push your mic button too, if you don't mind? Thank you.
So thank you, Council. This is weird. I remember Councilor Hensley had to do this one time before too, so super awkward right now. But really, so Yolanda is the MAT care coordinator. MAT is medication-assisted treatment, and our San Luis Valley was very fortunate to receive about $1 million to expand the number of providers who can provide medication-assisted treatment. And we have several partners who are working with Valleywide to provide these services to help people going through addiction issues. And it was really pushed forward through Senate Bill 1 in the legislature. So it definitely impacts our communities, and it impacts when we watch the legislation and things like that, and the places that have had funding already are continuing to get funding. And so I wanted to introduce Yolanda. Hello.
Right.
And she is going to be like anybody's access person to get into services. So if people have questions about accessing medication-assisted treatment, they're not sure where to go or maybe which type to even ask their doctor about, Yolanda is going to help them navigate the system. And so our partners in this are San Luis Valley Health, San Luis Valley Behavioral Health Group, Rio Grande Hospital, Valley-Wide Health Systems, Crossroads Turning Points, Center for Restorative Programs, San Luis Valley AHEC, and really anyone else who has contact with people that may be going through addiction issues to help them get Yolanda's information. We will have, or we do have a website right now called slvmat.org, so slvmat.org, and there's lots of good information on there. It's also continuing to be developed, so if you or anyone you know goes on and they have more questions or didn't get a question answered, you can totally give us that feedback, and we're happy to make the changes. And then Yolanda has a cell phone number that she can be reached anytime to help people. We're currently, not 2 o'clock in the morning, but we're working on an on-call system and things like that. So if you want to give your number, Yolanda.
That number is 719-588-2786, and it's also on the website.
And so we just really are trying to let everyone know that this program has started. We had over 14 primary care providers go through what's called a waiver training last Friday, and that means we have 14 more providers in the San Luis Valley who are going to prescribe Suboxone and Vivitrol, but that one is specific to Suboxone, but they can prescribe Vivitrol as well for opiate use disorder. slvmat.org. Do you want to add anything?
No, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, Heather, any follow-up on any of these items?
Sure, Mayor, and it's follow-up that's probably not going to make me the most popular person. But as you know, our own Kathy Rogers is one of the individuals working on this project, and she's doing it on her free time. I've gotten some questions on if she's doing it as a city employee. We're very supportive of the efforts of Monte Vista and Rio Grande. This is one of those projects that if this building is not saved, it can be devastating for that community. And if this project does happen, it's going to have an enormous benefit for Monte Vista and Rio Grande County. And so as partners and collaborators with Monte Vista and the individuals working on this, we're very, very hopeful that it's successful. It is an exciting project. It will allow them to keep some of the major events that they do host, maybe get a little bit from some conferences, although since it's not attached to hotels and things like that, it is a bit of a different market. So, but since our own Kathy Rogers has been participating in presenting this information, she has offered that if council is interested in seeing this information, they're not interested in requesting funding from the city. As your city manager, I don't think it is something that we should contribute towards. We've got some unfunded needs that will have a direct specific impact to the city of Alamosa. So I know that may not be popular, but at the same time, I can still wish them the best and want that project to succeed and speak in favor of it. But it doesn't necessarily cross over into thinking we need to make a monetary contribution.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Councilor Carson?
Heather, so as an entity, would that group be able to next year approach the city? I mean, I'm drawing a blank on what our criteria is for outside entities, if it's local to Alamosa, or if that committee would be able to apply through our donation process like any other entity.
I mean, we can give them that information, and if they're interested in doing that, then they can apply through that, and at least it's part of a budgeted line
Yeah.
item that's more appropriate for something like that. And I don't think our deadline for the second half of this year has passed. So granted, that's only $5,000 to spread among whoever's applying for it, but at least it's more in line than something that's unbudgeted. But I don't think it's going to be anywhere near the amounts that some other agencies have been contributing, some of the banks that you've been seeing in the paper and some things like that.
No, I got you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the follow-up. Okay, up next, we have consent calendar A. Councilor Vihil?
Don't we have a census proclamation?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry about that.
No problem, thank you. Let's see.
Mayor, you're gonna have to read it off
Yep.
the computer. I need to print
Okay,
it off.
there we go, yep. So, up next, we have the Census Proclamation. So, Luis, would you like to come up to the podium? Okay. All right. So this is not the time where you have to speak, so you don't have to be nervous yet. So we're going to read this proclamation to you, and we are going to go down and present it to you here in a few minutes, okay? All right. Bear with me. There we go. It's not moving. Okay, here we go. The City of Alamosa recognizes and proclaims support for the goals and ideals for the 2020 census. Whereas April the 1st, 2020 is Census Day for the United States of America, pursuit of Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution. And whereas the 2020 census, a once-a-decade population count, will be open to the public to self-report on March the 12th, 2020, and will continue through July 31st, with an ideal deadline of May the 12th to complete the census. And whereas an accurate census is required for the proper appointment of representatives within the legislative bodies of the U.S. House of Representatives and the Colorado State Legislature, and is used in the redistricting of state and county voting districts. And whereas correct, man, I could barely see what I'm looking at. Apportionment of federal dollars of public health, education, transportation, and child and elderly care, emergency preparations and response, public and social support programs of all types and kinds depend on complete and accurate age, population, and other demographic information gathered every 10 years. And whereas accurate census information is critical to planning for the future growth, development, and social needs of the City of Alamosa. And whereas the City of Alamosa includes a portion of the state of Colorado population, and many areas were deemed hard to count due to language barriers, transitory living, and rural housing units where the digital divide make a fair and accurate count more challenging, which requires deliberate engagement for a high self-response rate and an accurate census. Whereas investigations to respond to the 2020 census will begin reaching every housing unit in March, including for the first time a way to respond online, and each response should take less than 10 minutes. Now, therefore, we, the Alamosa City Council, by virtue of the authority vested in us, commit to supporting the work of the complete count committees, and further pledge our support to ensure a complete and accurate 2020 census for the City of Alamosa, adopted this 4th day of March 2020. I will sign this proclamation and we'll come down there and present it to you, okay? Thank you. Thank you. Yes, anyone have any comments before we have Mr. Lewis? He's going to say a few things in a few minutes, but did anybody have any other comments? Okay. All right. All right, we'll go down and present this to you. Thank you for your help. Well, he has to come up on the agenda in a few minutes. Yeah. That's why I forgot, because I knew we had him on that. Okay, now we're back on track. Here we go. Up next, we have consent calendar A. Councilman
Mayor, I
Yo.
move we approve consent calendar A.
I'll second. I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, please start voting. We're missing one. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, no worries. All right. Up next, we have presentation from an outside agency, Luis Alvarez, with the 2020 census. Heather, did you want to introduce or say anything, or is he just going to come up and start talking?
No, if Lewis wants to come up, he is our point person
Okay.
for the valley on this charge for the Census 2020. I also do want to give a quick shout out, though, as well, to Deacon, who has served as the lead for the city, and Kelly, who's working with some of the promotions. There is a complete count committee, and all of these individuals have been working with that complete count committee as well. But with that, I want to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's really nice to be here. I'm happy to be here, and I'm honored that there was a proclamation. I wanted to kind of explain a little bit about what I do. I'm what they call the partnership specialist for the San Luis Valley. I cover the whole San Luis Valley. I'm the first partnership specialist that the U.S. Census has placed in the San Luis Valley. So with that, I kind of take my job kind of seriously, and my charge is pretty important for the Valley. One of the reasons specifically that I'm here, and in Alamosa specifically, is in 2010, there was a 61% self-response rate in Alamosa, in the city of Alamosa. That means that 61% of the people actually responded to the census. The other 39%, if I'm doing my math right, didn't self-respond, and it required an enumerator to go out to the property. We're expecting that with this year, the expectations are that it might be around 25% of non-response, initial non-response to the census in the 2 tracts that exist in Alamosa. Each tract is considered about 4,000 people, so it's kind of divided along 160, where the 2 tracts for Alamosa are. And they are considered low response rates, so they're putting a lot of effort into Alamosa to try to get people to promote the census because it's important for our communities. They talk about data, dollars, and democracy, and how it's important. For data, it's important to gather how many people we have in our communities, how many people we have in the country. Out of that, we can figure out some other data, and there are a lot of other questions that are figured out of that, and they're important for businesses, for nonprofits, for local governments. Dollars, through the census, about billions of dollars are distributed based on census data. So basically, any federal funds are distributed out to communities based on census data. So it's important that everybody gets counted accurately in every community, and especially in communities that depend a lot on federal funding. A lot of that comes into, I've worked nonprofits for 13 years here in Alamosa, and I had no clue that my salary was actually tied directly to the census data because I billed Medicaid, and Medicaid dollars come through that. So all of a sudden it became really important, not just a job. It became something that my clients really depended on, the people that I worked with. A lot of the families in the valley that I worked with were dependent on WIC and Medicaid and other funding sources like that that are also tied directly to census data. The census does not necessarily hand out that money. It doesn't mean that the census has any money for that. The census just provides that count to the agencies that actually distribute the funds. So also democracy. It's really important for the census because the House of Representatives is capped at 435. And so each state has representatives based on census data. Colorado currently has 7. We've had an influx of population, and I'm not allowed to talk about projections, but those are readily available on Google, and many people have made a lot of projections on how representation is done. or how it might affect Colorado. That means that some other state, if Colorado gains a representative, some other state might lose one. Obviously, it's sad for them, but it's good for us. All redistricting data also counts on census. So to me, it's really important for rural communities to actually get an accurate count so we can really represent the rural communities accurately. So the census, like the proclamation states, starts March 12th. It's the first time that we're going online. Many of the places in Alamosa will not receive a survey right off the bat. They will get actually an invitation to respond that will be mailed out around March 12th. So they will receive it sometime in that mid-March to March 20th. They'll get the first invitation to respond. In some areas of Alamosa, they'll go out in Spanish and in English. And you can go online. It'll have a phone number to actually go to answer by phone. So there'll be 3 ways to respond: by phone, online, or by mail. The actual survey in 95% of the country will not receive 95% of the country will not receive the survey right off the bat like it was done traditionally. But in the San Luis Valley and a lot of rural areas where people get their mail through P.O. boxes, we don't send stuff to P.O. boxes. They will actually receive the survey, and it'll come in a little bag, and they'll hang it on the doorknob during the update leave portion of operations. So if people don't respond to the initial, don't go online and don't respond, by the 4th mail out that they will get, they will actually receive a survey. And if they don't respond to that survey, we will actually pay them a visit, and we will go to their door. And hopefully we have all the addresses that we need to go to those doors and knock on those doors. Other operations, my job really depends on self-response, and those are my metrics. If my self-response rates are higher, if Alamosa's self-response rates are higher, that means I've done my job. So we'll be doing a lot of operations throughout the time that the website is available. You'll see tables at festivals here, anything that we have at the park, any congregations where a lot of people might show up. We will try to set up a table, either through the community partners, like the Boys and Girls Club is doing this. The CCC, Complete Count Committee here in the Valley, has purchased some computers through a grant that they received as well, so they will be out in the community. I encourage people to please support that and support those operations, and encourage people to come and fill out the survey. I've timed people doing the survey. The census says it takes about 10 minutes. I've timed people doing it in 2 minutes for a single person. 9 questions, pretty simple and straightforward. Usually people get tripped up on the race questions. And those are the only ones that people get tripped up on. There's a lot of support. There will be phone numbers available in 59 languages, 59 languages online to answer the question, 12 languages on the phone. So they will be able to call in for 12 languages, support on how to answer each survey. Unfortunately, we don't have Canjoba as one of the options, but the Immigrant Resource Center is working with a lot of the Guatemalan community to assist with that. So I'm trying to think if I've missed anything.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
Counselor
What's the
Carson, and
average,
then Counselor Vigil.
national self-reported response?
Average.
61%, you said?
Well, that was in 2010.
I know, what was the average?
The average, I don't know that off the top of my head. It depends per community, and kind of where they are. So, yeah, it's available on our website that's up here. If you just type in the search box 2010 self-response rates, there's an interactive map that you can look at. We have a lot of mapping tools. Surprised everybody's a statistician in the census, which is really kind of fun to watch. All these people that are really into numbers, and we have some maps available where you can actually look down to the tracks in Alamosa. One of the things that is really important, all the data in the census is confidential. We do not release private information to any other agency or anybody else. It stays within the census. We only release it back out in aggregate data by tracks and by blocks. and we actually take a lot of pride in making sure that that data is safe and secure. There's more encryption than the banking industry, from what I understand, behind the census data. We only release individual data after 72 years. Right now, we can look up the 1940 census, which is really kind of interesting to look at Alamosa and the pages that they had, and look up our family members that might have been here and how they responded to the census.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Vihil.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
2 questions. Number 1, after all this process is done, when will we start getting that aggregate data? And number 2, are there any questions about like citizenship status, and should people be afraid about that, those types of questions or anything like that, or misinformation that's out there?
The data will be turned into the president on December 31st, 2020. Saying that right? Yes. And then from there it'll go on to Congress and then be released to the public. The citizenship question is not on the survey this year. None of those questions are there.
Luis, what are you all doing differently this time around to reach more people than the last census?
Every census, the Census Bureau learns something new and tries to implement it for the next time. It's the first time that it's online. And so that is kind of one of the ways to reach people. We realize, though, that in a lot of sections of the country still don't have good internet. And the census actually has that data as well, and that's what they utilize to determine who will get the survey right off the bat. There are different operations that are going out. One of them, to reach hard-to-reach populations, one of the key things is increasing the amount of partnership specialists. There were originally something like 300 in 2010 throughout the nation, and now we're 1,500 of us. 300 in our region, which is pretty large.
Okay, thank you.
18 of us in Colorado, I believe.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Griego?
I had one, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Following Councilor Vihil's question, Lisa, is there a technique or what's out there to ensure these people that probably that are here illegally, that this won't, they won't get turned in, or immigration will be waiting for them after you leave the door? Is there going to be a way to get this information from these people, or have you guys developed something for that?
The main intervention is a lot of our materials are in Spanish that we've developed, or in all the languages actually that reach the U.S., the 59 languages that we have, and so a lot of the materials are in that language, the outreach materials. But I've also been tasked as a partnership specialist to reach out to those trusted voices in the community that will be able to help out the people that are here that are undocumented and living in the U.S. to ensure that their data is safe and that it's important for them to complete the survey. Working with places like the Immigrant Resource Center and other nonprofit agencies that work with those populations that might not feel trusted.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa.
Councilor Brawls, did you have any comment? No? Okay, all right, good. All right. Okay. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All right, up next, we have the second reading and public hearing of ordinance number 5-2020, an ordinance amending Chapter 21 of the Code of Ordinances.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Ordinance 5-2020, amending Chapter 21 of the Alamosa Code of Ordinances, otherwise known as UDC. There's been no changes since the first reading. It's exactly what we talked about: changes to uses in the downtown plan, changes to the sign code, and just various tidbits of cleaning up.
Okay. At this time, we will open it up for a public hearing of ordinance number 5-2020. If we have anyone in the audience who would like to make any comments in regards to this ordinance, please come up to the podium. Okay, seeing that We have no one coming to the podium. We will now close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Councilor Brawls.
I have no questions, and if there's no other questions, I'd make a motion to approve ordinance number 5, 2020, and ordinance amending chapter 21 of Code Ordinance of the City of Alamosa.
Second.
Okay. Counselor, okay. Please start voting. Okay, Ms. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
All right, good, thank you. Up next, we have City Manager Legal, Resolution Number 2-2020.
Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome.
Several years ago, we modified our mobile vending to create more of a compromise between those businesses that wanted to invest in a mobile vending because those expenses could be fairly significant, but then also balance that with the needs of those businesses that are in a brick and mortar building and the cost associated with that type of business. Since then, we really haven't modified it. It seems to be working and working well. We did, though, this past year start to get some questions from some of the mobile vendors on why we don't allow it within the parks. And one of the examples was if you look at Carroll Park and all those soccer kids, it'd be great if they could pull up the barbecue truck or a pizza truck or something like that. And as staff talked about it, we agreed. We thought that would be great for our patrons and enhance the experience that they're having. And so what we did then is the code that you had already adopted actually had language in there that stated council could create food zones. We just had never taken advantage of that. So this ordinance is to then actually identify food zones. It does it for 10 of our city parks. It also then sets up a little bit of a limiting in that they can only be there for the park's normal open hours, which is 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So we don't want someone getting there the day before and setting up. It's something that's still supposed to be mobile type of situation. And that way, it's a first come, first served type of business. So we're excited to make this recommendation to council and maybe bring some more activity to the parks. And if you want, I can go through all 10 parks, but each one has a shaded area, and that map would be provided to the vendors. They will still need to come get their normal license and still meet all of the qualifications for those licensings.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Heather. Counselor Daniel,
Thank you, Mayor.
you're welcome.
Could they, and I'm sorry that when I was looking at this, I was trying to open the map, could more than one mobile food vendor be on site at a time?
As long as the space dimensions allow for it.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Vigil?
Just want a quick comment. I do appreciate the fact that we're not allowing mobile vending at the softball fields, especially in the summertime when we have all the softball games going, because we have groups who vie to get the concession stands there to help out their own programming. So I appreciate that.
Okay. Counselor Griego?
With that, if there's no further questions, I'll make the motion that we approve resolution number 2, 2020.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not, please start voting. Ms. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Under item 2B, we have the selection of a council member to serve on the Alamosa Housing Assessment Committee. Ms. Heather?
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Similar to when we did the comprehensive plan and the downtown plan, we like to set up a committee to help us in the selection of the consultant, to make sure the process is moving along as it should, that we're getting the results of the planning efforts that we need to see. I think this is also especially important given this project, because from a staff perspective, this is not an area that we have a lot of technical expertise. And so, as you can see in the council communications, we have reached out to some key partners. Kelly Adams with La Puente, Don Melgares with SLV Housing Coalition, Delzy Worley with SLV Federal Bank and Building Better Places, as well as Don. Lisa Lucero, who is a realtor, Mark Manzanares representing the Planning Commission, Rachel Baird with Alamosa County and the Building Better Places participant, and then we had previously had Robin Wolf with CRHDC, but she is no longer working there, and given the mayor's new role, there may be potential there to have some crossover with representation for CRHDC, as well as the involvement in the Building Better Places. But not to lead you for your discussion coming up, we would like to see if council is interested in having a representative as well.
So we're all kind of nodding, yes, we think that a member makes sense. Do they already have meetings set up that we would need to fit in our schedule?
No, the only thing that I have done is sent the group a draft RFP and scope of services. So that's all I've done so far.
Counselor Grego?
I think it's very important that we have somebody on there, and I was gonna ask our mayor to do it, but he'll probably be doing it indirectly through his job, or no?
Well, I could do it as a part of council as well.
Because you have that expertise, and you've worked in that field before, so I
Okay.
would feel comfortable with that. I don't know about the rest of the council.
Okay.
Well, I was gonna say, if you want me, I can do it too, because I know, I don't know whether there's a conflict of interest there or not, I don't think so, but if the mayor wants, I can serve on that.
Okay. I think Heather was gonna say something too. but
And
yeah.
just that question to conflict, thankfully, the mayor is very straightforward. And so as he's taking on this new position, we talked about what that might mean for him and what to be involved in and not be involved in. I think on this group doesn't make any decisions, and it's not gonna provide any kind of competitive edge. So I don't think this is a conflict. We did talk, should his employer have projects coming forward and there's questions on how it's going through Public Works and those things, to best have maybe someone else handle it or to work through me. So we've kind of worked through those different roles that might come up with this new position.
Heather, is there any way to be 2 council members on there?
Absolutely, there can be 2.
Okay. So, will that work with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, that way Counselor Brawls could be on there too? Oh, Counselor Daniel?
Yeah, can I just ask another question?
Sure.
Would it be reasonable also to ask potentially someone from the Housing Authority board or staff to be part of the assessment committee?
I reached out to Anna, and she said that she would be willing to sometimes answer questions and stuff, but she didn't feel she had time.
Okay.
Or for her staff. I can see if she has a board member who's interested, but we did reach out to them.
Okay. I don't know if, I'm not sure if it came out to the board because she may not have asked them, but I think they're looking at, things have come up on that board before about whether or not they should try to expand, but that would put them in a whole different category. So I think that there's an impact
I think it would be amazing. So I can reach out to her again. I don't feel comfortable going around her to her board.
No,
So I can reach out to her again, though.
that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Counselor Grego?
Do we need a form of a motion, or what's the process there?
Motion would be cleanest.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we select 2 members from the council to sit on this board, our mayor and Councilor David Broyles.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Eric, do I abstain from this vote?
No.
Okay, all right. No further questions, please start voting. Thank you, council. Okay, Ms. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. The next item, 2C, the first reading of ordinance number 8-2020.
Mayor, this goes hand in hand with the resolution number 2 that you just passed, because one of the sites that is designated as a food zone in resolution number 2 is that old kind of parking area out near where the old ice rink was. That area is ideal for Carroll Park in that it gets it further off of that road that runs in front of the high school, and provides a kind of a tucked away place for it with plenty of access. That, however, is not paved, and currently section 10-221F4 of the code requires that for a mobile food vending unit to be parked and operational, it has to be on a paved surface. Staff did not think that that was a necessary requirement in considering this, and so what this ordinance does is removes that requirement for paving. Now, lots still have to be developed, so you can't put up a mobile food vending unit on an undeveloped lot, but if it's a developed lot, which Carroll Park obviously is, it's developed as a park, then the paving requirement goes away. And it's not just for Carroll Park, it's not just for city-owned properties, it's also would be the case for privately owned properties if they were to, they're not part of a designated food zone because that's only city-owned properties, but if they were to open up property to a mobile vendor and they had an appropriate place that was on a developed lot but was not paved, they could do that.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Counselor Carson, and then Counselor Hensley.
Well, if those are no more questions.
I have a question. Sorry, just real quick. So, and I don't know, so is it something where if it's not paved, because a lot of times when you're cooking, there's grease, there's things that do fall on the ground. And so with that, could that have any effect? Because definitely a lot of grease can, I know from Kiwanis when we do our breakfast and there, we have the cardboard and stuff under. So I'm just more asking to make sure we've covered that and that's not an issue or concern.
I think when we first drafted this, Pat's the one that took the lead on it, and I think he pulled from some different areas. So I can't really speak to what the point was. My gut is that we were pulling from different areas. When Eric was talking to me about it, my first inclination was that we had it in there to prevent it from just being on a bunch of vacant lots. It's a way to kind of control where it's going to be. But then he explained we still have in there that it has to be developed. So I'm not sure if that was just an extra miscellaneous thing that we really don't need, or if there was some reason like that. I'm looking at Harry, and if you remember anything, or if you think that's a concern.
You know, actually, the Kiwanis thing is not mobile food vending.
No,
under
where
the
I was going with that
ordinance.
is I know how much grease and stuff can, like for mobile things or when you're cooking, the grease can go, there's a ton of, I'm from restaurant and there's a ton of grease in restaurants.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't trying to criticize, I was just asking if we had thought of that. That's all I was asking.
I don't know that we had, but mobile food vending units are actually self-contained vehicles or trailers, so they shouldn't be leaking their grease all over, one would hope. And I suppose if it becomes a problem, and there are conditions also for the mobile food vending that prohibit littering, and that would obviously be a littering problem. So we would have ways to address that if it were an issue.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Grego?
I guess one comment I would have is, if I come and I have to renew my license annually, right? For this mobile vending, or is this
Judy,
one-time license, or how does this work?
Is this an annual renewal? Yes.
What I'm getting at is there like a pamphlet or something that's gonna tell me all about all these rules and regulations, so I don't
Yes.
park here and I don't drop grease here and, you know, stuff like that?
So Judy, we do give them that information, the ordinance that has all of that, correct? There's a whole packet, and then we will just add these pictures to that packet that identify the food zones.
So when I come and pay my license, it's my responsibility as a mobile vendor to get this information?
Yes, and
Or
if
is it
they
given- Or
have,
is it given to me?
no, so they come to get an
Okay.
application, and we physically hand them the
Okay,
packet
good.
of information.
Good.
And then if they have questions, we'll answer whatever questions they have. And then it's also available online, all the information.
I guess I just don't want somebody to say, oh, well, I didn't know nothing about this.
Well, I can't control what
Yeah,
people
I
are
don't-
gonna say, but whether or not they should have known about it's a different argument.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
part of the application process is it goes to finance, who actually issues the license. They bring us the application, and with that, there's basically a list of all the rules, and they initial through each one of those rules of what they're allowed. So before we did the designated food zone, a lot of it had to do to protect the brick and mortar facilities. And so that it came through Public Works just so we could verify all their information and just make sure they understood, you know, the basic practice of the mobile vending.
Okay, thank you, Harry.
Thank you. Thank you, Council Griego. Okay. Council Griego,
With that, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we pass ordinance number 8-2020 on first reading and set it for a public hearing on, what's the date there?
March 18th.
March 18th at 7 o'clock or soon thereafter.
I'll second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, please start voting. Ms. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you all very much. Up next, under item 3A, we have the first reading of ordinance number 7-2020.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
This is a project that started probably around 3 years ago, so we're excited to be able to hopefully have it close to completion. It's for our utility division, which, as you know, is our water and wastewater employees. We've got 2 water treatment plants, and legal requirements require us to have certain classifications and licensing for those employees in order for them to operate. We became concerned over the succession planning and our ability to make sure that we had depth in that organization in case something were to happen to some of our key personnel. We also have been experiencing significant turnover in this area, and so staff wanted to tackle looking at that organizational structure and if there should be any changes that helped better cross-train, create that depth from a succession planning perspective, but also would motivate people to be attracted to the positions and to be able to retain those employees as well. We created a new structure. We wrote job descriptions that were sufficient for those positions and conducted a market survey in order to make sure we're placing them in the correct location in the pay plan. And so that is what is before you tonight is the adoption of that pay plan that would have some of those minor changes. And I can answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Okay. Councilor Hill.
I don't think there's any questions, Mayor, so I move that we approve ordinance number 7-2020 on first reading, amending the employee pay plan and set for a public hearing on March 18th or soon thereafter.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not, please start voting. Ms. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
All right, great job, everybody. Okay, up next, we have committee reports. Do we have any committee reports? No? Yes? Councilor Daniel?
Don't know much about it. I did attend the Housing Authority last week. They're actually talked about reaching out to some city staff for a couple of really cool projects they have going on. And so they're looking at trying to do some recycling, maybe adding some kids in for kids' play areas and things like that that they're just looking at. So they knew who to contact at the city and they have it going, but they're really doing some neat things at the Housing Authority.
Thank you, Councilor Daniel. Any other committee reports? All right. If not, that brings us down to staff announcements.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're
I just
welcome.
have one quick one, and then I believe the city attorney has one regarding water augmentation. We sent out an email, I think nationally, internationally, there's a lot of press being played towards the virus and precautions that people can take and where the outbreak is and people shopping crazy at the stores and those types of things. From a city perspective, we're trying to be very deliberate in how we communicate about this. We definitely don't want to create fear. We don't want people to be scared or anything like that. But at the same time, we do want them to understand that from a city perspective, we've got some plans in place in regards to how our operations can function if the virus does come here. And we can scale up or down depending on if it's just a few people versus a few more than that. In this type of situation, our key key agency that we look to for direction is the county health department. They are the experts in what's going on in this, and we look to them for guidance on what should be communicated to the public and those types of things. But we are communicating with our employees, and we've had the discussions on what our services look like and what modifications may need to happen if it were to come to Alamosa. But we're not necessarily too concerned, and we believe the information that if people practice, the hand washing, the social distancing, some of those types of things, and to stay home if they think they're sick instead of potentially spreading it, I think a lot of those precautions can go a long way. And so that's what we're reiterating with our employees.
Okay, thank you, Heather. And I believe, Eric, you have something to say too?
I do. Just a brief update on the augmentation plan, which, as you know, we filed at the end of last year. The opposition statement period ran on the last day of February, so just recently, so we know who all the players are, and it's the typical players. It's the Rio Grande Water Conservation District, the state engineer, the Rio Grande Canal Company. Interestingly, the Colorado Water Conservation Board as well, who is concerned about maintaining their in-stream flow rights, and the Terrace Irrigation Company, Terrace Reservoir. So we will now start moving forward on that. I expect this to be a fairly lengthy process, and we'll get back into the groove now that we're getting some motion here of giving you all the quarterly updates.
And when you say lengthy, because that can mean different things to different people, are we talking years?
We are. I'm expecting a couple of years.
Couple years, wow, okay. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Heather. Okay, that brings us to council comments. Councilor Vigil.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to say good luck to all of our Valley basketball teams who are heading to regionals. Alamosa sending 2 teams, Sanford, Centauri, Center, Sangre, Del Norte. So almost everybody in the Valley is playing basketball this weekend. If teams win this weekend, they go to the state tournament next weekend. So good luck to all the Valley basketball teams.
And we would like to congratulate you too, Councilor Vigil. I believe your team came in 3rd of the tournament last week. Let's give them a round of applause. Center, good job. Okay, Councilor Griego.
I had two, a comment and a question. My comment, on Saturday, I belong to this Catholic organization called the Knights of Columbus. They will be celebrating 100 years of service to this community. So I just wanted to bring that out. And my second deal is, I had a question. When a person or a group takes it upon themselves to do something for the community as far as a project, is there a way that the city could recognize them, or do we recognize them? Because it was brought up to my attention that this certain person was not even recognized by the city after doing a project for the city. Well, not for the city, but for the community. Is there, in the past, have we?
So in
maybe
the
is that-
past, we've done proclamations, or
Not, well, let's say, for example, somebody goes and takes it upon themselves to do something at a park or something and spends their own money, and, do we recognize, is there a way, or is that something that we need to maybe look at in the future?
well, council has a policy on it. So
Oh,
it's
there is a
there's a
policy?
recognition policy that you
Okay,
guys
well,
adopted. I think it's a proclamation.
You recognize them as, with the proclamation?
Yeah, so council, if you would just need to direct us if you want to have a proclamation created recognizing someone for their efforts.
Okay, all right, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Griego. Okay, Councilor Brawls.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up, for, this is kind of an interim term discussion about our downtown project. We have a good committee, we have a good plan, we have excitement, what we need is money. And basically I want to say, I'm sort of recommending or having us look at as a city council, look at the reserves that we have. Right now, the staff prepares a projected balance. We're at 40% of our reserves. And I'm asking, what's wrong with going down to 38%? And why can't we dedicate $500,000 to this downtown project. Because nothing will kill enthusiasm on a committee faster than having no money to do anything with. And so we've done all the preliminary steps, now it's the money. Is there some risk? Yeah, there's some risk. And I appreciate our city manager and our finance director being conservative. And I think it's good to be conservative, but at times we have to kind of get out there and, invest some money into our community. And I think the downtown is an excellent way to start investing because the return is can be so huge. As we start investing downtown and putting money downtown, it's going to attract people, both visitors and vendors and businesses, for them to invest in downtown. And so I'm saying let's take a little bit of leadership role, take a little bit of risk of dropping our reserves down just a little bit to get the ball rolling on our downtown project.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Brawls. Councilor Carson?
Not to be a killjoy, but I agree with you that we do need money in that cough for that project. However, I think I attribute this back to kind of the roundabout thing, being that we just passed our street tax this year. I think this is something, taking $500,000 and dedicating it to that would probably be something that should at least wait a year or so before, we need to start working on these projects we've started before we even give the perception that any of that money is being redirected. I mean, it's not gonna be redirected, but you know what I'm saying? I think we should wait on stuff like that right now, being that we just passed this street tax. It's just my opinion.
Councilor Griego?
I agree with you
Thank you,
that
Councilor Carson.
to have a healthy downtown is very, very important. And I'd like to maybe see if we're gonna start going out there looking for some monies, and if there's matching funds, if we have to come up with matching funds, I think something like that, Councilor Broyle, that we would say, okay, if we get a large number amount and we have to match it, I could see something like that. But you're exactly right. If we don't have a healthy downtown, we're in trouble. That pretty much, the downtown anchors our community, and if we don't have that, we're seriously in trouble. So I agree. I would not agree with both of you guys, but I would, if something comes up where there's monies available, I think we should go after it. So.
Councilor Brawls and then Heather.
No, I agree. I agree with Councilor Carson because, I do agree, but, this is like a $4 or $5 million project. And with Councilor Griego talking about having matching funds, I think down the road to get the things going, we're gonna have to have matching funds. But I'm a little bit hesitant waiting 1 year, 2 years, because our committee they're gonna lose their enthusiasm. And I'm just talking about 500,000. Yeah, I understand. We just passed a project, but I think also the citizens are looking to us for some leadership and some economic development and helping get the ball rolling. But, we did all the preliminary things. We've appointed a committee, we've completed the plan, we've got the enthusiasm, so let's just put a little bit of money behind it. And the risk is, we're dropping our reserves a little bit. And I don't think we're gonna get that much criticism if they see something positive going forward. But, again, I'm not saying we do this today. Let's think about it, pondering it. I'm sure staff will have some, rebuttals. But, I think we need to start thinking about this.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Brawls. Okay, Heather?
So I think there's ways to accomplish all of this. I think there's a lot of unity in the focus of wanting to see something get done downtown. And I know we were talking just today, we've got 2 new storefronts that maybe yesterday were opening up, a lot of other leads, and there is a lot of excitement. And a lot of it is because of the plan and the talk and the excitement that plan is creating. And it is way easier to keep momentum going than to let it stop and have to try to restart it. And so I am not going to be your manager that tries to dampen any desire to make the downtown strong, because it is extremely important. And I know from hearing from you guys after you did the interviews to appoint the Main Street Advisory Board and hearing that excitement and that commitment from the volunteers, I think it is a major goal, and it is for staff as well. So just In our current CIP for this year, you did place funds in there to partner with the marketing board to do some of the wayfinding. So not all of it, but some of it. So there is a little bit of that tangible for this year. Additionally, I've had meetings with DOLA to try to get a better feel for what would be eligible for mineral impact grants, community development block grants, some of those types of fundings. And so some of it, we have to have the actual engineering done before we can apply for the construction part of it, because the construction part for CDBG is what would be eligible, but not the design of it type of thing. So there's a few steps we have to do before it. My other is, once we've applied for the housing grant, which is due April 1st, my next focus was going to be to sit down and get a cost of what will it take. Is it $1,000, $5,000 to do an engineering study to satisfy CDOT, to get it from 3 down to 2, and get that done this year if council would do a budget adjustment. And then that can set us up to put in the CIP for next year, the actual reducing it from 3 down to 2 with those barriers, and gives us time to get a cost estimate and identify potential grants. Now, beautification in and of itself may not be eligible for some of those. We're gonna look beyond DOLA to see if there's some other grants that might be available. But I think there's ways to still accomplish it, not lose momentum. We may need to put some more resources to it. But I will tell you, it makes me a little nervous just to pick a number like 500,000 when it could be, let's get our hands around this, still do it. Don't let us lose momentum and keep that fire under us. But it makes me a little nervous just picking a number. The only other thing, and I'm just gonna circle this back around to the beginning, that's why I'm not in favor of us giving a significant amount to another agency. As great as I think the Sky High project is, we do not have it funded for what we want to do with the downtown, and we don't know how we're going to pay for the improvements that have to happen with the levee for certification. And so when we have those kinds of needs that can have an immediate impact on our community and keep that excitement going, because when you get that private sector doing this, we need to keep it going. So I agree with all of it. I think there's just a little twist, and we could still be accomplishing what you're trying to get accomplished, is what I would offer.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Councilor Vigil.
And Heather, can you also comment on the murals that we're gonna start doing and how that might generate some excitement as well?
Oh, so that's so sad. We didn't get the grant.
Oh, you didn't
We
get the
just
grant.
found out. We just found out this week. We did not get the grant. However, we had our business partner was Papers of Distinction, and our local artist, who's fairly well known, is in Montgomery. They had put some work into it because we had to have an artist and a business, and they did some work. And so I'm working with Kelly to see, he only would have gotten 5,000, and it would be in that downtown park on that wall. I'm working with Kelly to see if we can figure out a way to still at least get that one done, since they put work into it and they were excited about it and that type of thing. If we can do something with our art budget a little bit, but we didn't get the grant because I think it was gonna be 10 to 15 murals or something. So we were really excited, but we did not get it. I know, Kelly was very sad, as was I, but Kelly worked very, very hard on that. It was a hard grant.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Councilor Carson, then Councilor Daniel.
I appreciate your comments, and I just wanted to iterate that I don't want to kill momentum, and that wasn't my intent, but, you know, I think those lines need to be clear for our constituents and everybody out there, that we aren't touching that off and that, you know, stuff like that. So.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Carson. Councilor Daniel?
So totally switching, thank you for all of the comments. I just wanted to celebrate that we had a local Youth of the Year on Tuesday. Isaiah Avila was the Youth of the Year this year. He'll be going to Denver and representing the San Luis Valley Boys and Girls Club. And there was a scholarship that was given by ASU, and they usually do give one. I had thought it was only for 1 year usually, but this year it was for 4 years. A full scholarship, 4 years, because of his being the Youth of the Year locally. And so his speech was amazing. Breakfast was really good. It was donated by EAFS. And so when we talk about people who do things for the community, they're always there. But for those of you who weren't able to attend, it was actually a really nice, well-run event this year.
Thank you, Councilor Daniel. Councilor Griego?
I'll make a comment there too. It was my nephew who won that award, so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so.
Congratulations. Okay, council. I don't see any more lit up mics, so at this time, the meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you. Good job, everybody.